I felt so weird not going to big law right out of law school. And I felt like I was really doing something wrong and that was very bad. I am from the DC area, and my parents and my brother are all lawyers, and my brother and I are actually fourth generation lawyers on my mom's side. So this is something that was in my blood and very much in my family. And I don't feel like I had any pressure to go to law school. It just always seemed like a foregone conclusion for me. Like, what else would I do was kind of the way that I thought about it. And so it had always been my plan. I did the typical, like, humanities, steady, ready. Like, I was a Latin American studies and poli sci major, typical, like, I'm just going to go to law school major. Yeah. And so for me, it was like never really a question to go to law school. And then I got there and I was like, wow, I really hate this actually.
Okay.
Um,
Not expected.
yeah, I think like I really like being a lawyer. I think the like I don't like the really academic side of lawyering,
I get that.
and I think law school just seemed so, like the whole thing is hypothetical, and I was not into the academic side of lawyering, and I was, other people were like really into con law, and I was like, I think this is really boring and not for me at all. And it was really hard for me to see myself, and I think part of it was also that I just didn't click with a lot of the people who I went to law school with, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, am I gonna have, like, is this gonna be all the people I'm gonna work with, and am I gonna hate that? So that was a part of it too. um, and so when I got out of law school, I was actually initially planning to work for a couple of years and go back and get an MBA and actually do something completely different.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and but I did end up taking the bar, out of law school. My parents were like, "You went to law school, like take the bar. You can
Might as well.
do whatever after, but take the bar." And I did. And I'm obviously glad I did. Um, and then I ended up working for a company right out of law school that was really more of a consulting company that provided, like, and still does, a variety of legal adjacent services, including like law practice consulting, e-discovery, a lot of different services in those different areas. And so I ended up getting into privacy consulting when I was there. And I was hearing from a lot of people, this is 2017 at the time, that there were a lot of things happening in privacy with GDPR coming into effect. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I started doing privacy consulting in 2017, which was a really big time for privacy. And then as I was doing consulting, I did a secondment for a client whose privacy counsel at the time was on maternity leave. So my secondment basically turned into me being privacy counsel for them while their privacy counsel was out. And I realized that I loved it. And so I was like, oh, I'm really surprised that I like being a real lawyer and I like being in house. And so I ended up working for that company that was my former client. And the biggest thing that came out of that is that I met my now co-founder and my partner at my firm, Nadav. He was my client boss who hired me. And so it's really, really great to see those relationships carry over to what is now my firm.
I love hearing your story because I've had versions of this conversation with so many people where and law students and practicing attorneys, and there are so many ways to be a lawyer. And I feel like you maybe find out about maybe 1% of them while you're in law school. and and we're still like, the world is still discovering all sorts of other ways to be a lawyer that we don't even know about today. And a big question just ends up being, well, how do you identify the right path for you right now? And what's right for you right now can also change in a year or 3 years, and that's totally fine and normal. But how do you end up even discovering and allowing yourself to try these different things and end up either where you're supposed to be, next, or you try a handful of different things and then you find your way, you piecemeal it together.
Totally. Yeah, I think first when I was in law school, when I first got out of law school, I very much felt like there was a right and a wrong way of of proceeding. You know what I mean? Like there's a path, and
A lawyer thinking just there's one right way and one and all the other
I
ways are wrong.
know,
Crazy.
shocking. Yeah, yeah, and so I felt so weird not going to big law right out of law school, and I felt like I was really doing something wrong, and that was very bad, and that was something that stuck with me for probably the first like 5 years out of law school until I started seeing a lot of my classmates leaving their first big law jobs and other people starting to go in house and other people starting to do different things. And that was when I was like, oh, okay, I now feel better about this. And obviously, looking back, I'm like, I would have been miserable if I had gone straight to big law. Like, I think I would have left law entirely. So, like, thank God I didn't. But it was really something that, like, I felt like very self conscious about at the time.
Yeah. How did you manage that? Like, you're in this work situation that's sounds like you had a feeling like, oh, this actually, I like this. This feels good, but this feels like not what quote unquote success is supposed to look like. So I'm kind of enjoying it, or definitely enjoying it, but I feel like a weirdo. So what was what was happening in your brain while you were going through that?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think having the support of my family was really helpful because my dad is you know is a guy who was a partner in a small firm for his whole career, but my mom was at the federal government for her whole career, and so she was very helpful in being like, yes, you could be at Skadden or whatever, and also like really probably really hating your life. So like it's okay for you to take this path. So having that support was really key. And I was also really fortunate to land at the company where I was, where I just really loved the people who I was working with. And that made my life just so enjoyable. Like, I'm still in touch with or like friends with like the great majority of the people who I worked with there. And I really felt like there's this really lovely culture of like we're all in this together, even though like we could all be doing something quote unquote like better on paper. And that also made me feel better. I was like, oh, I love working with these people, and like all of these individual people are great, and like that's rare.